What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Financially Free Era podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and today I've got Travis with me. Travis from Student Loan Planner. You know Travis Hornsby. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
It's great to be here. And technically, I work at SLP Wealth too.
Do
Just,
you?
just
I'm
saying.
just kidding.
Just saying. Yeah, I'm just
He does. I
joking.
promise he does. We brought him out of the basement today from working on his spreadsheets to chat about something on this podcast. What are we going to be chatting about today?
Well, yeah, I like to joke to the team that I'm at my happiest when I'm in like the basement just designing spreadsheets. Like that's what I wish I could do. But then sometimes we have to do compliance stuff and management stuff and the
Yeah.
website stuff, and I got to come out of the basement. So today I'm coming out of the basement to talk about a really interesting blog post that one of our readers sent to us,
Hmm.
and it's a blog post from White Coat Investor talking about DIYer, Delegator, or Validator. Which one are you?
Hmm.
And I have some hot takes on this that are going to be controversial, and it's going to be a little bit maybe shocking to some readers what I'm going to say on today's
Yeah.
pod. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Travis
yeah,
and I
I just
had
think
it.
this is going to be really interesting.
We had an internal meeting this morning and we were just reading this together. And I was
The
literally
blog
like,
post.
yeah, the blog post itself. And actually, so all of this article itself helps you kind of put yourself in a spot when it comes to managing your finances and or bringing in a professional when it comes to managing your finances. And so we were just having a candid conversation about it. And I was like, pause. I need to go get my adapter because we need to record this right now to chat about it.
Yeah, because
Because
it's pretty juicy. So let me jump right in. So like what are these three categories? So a DIYer is a do-it-yourselfer. It's somebody that wants to manage all their own finances with no input from any professional whatsoever.
Mhm.
There's validator that wants occasional check-ins to make sure they're on the right track. And then there's delegator who wants to outsource everything, not have to think about their money as, that much, wants a professional to help them manage it. So the reason why I think this is so interesting is particularly in the context of some of our highest income listeners, like specifically physicians, especially, but also like high income dentists, high income lawyers. Like it's really anybody who's a professional that is very high income. I think that this is a really fascinating thing to talk about, you know, is being a DIYer or validator or a delegator, are those things in your best interest? Is that a good thing to do? So I want to talk about DIYers first, right?
Mhm.
So DIYer is what I used to be for a lot of my life, and that's because I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved managing my money. I loved tracking all my net worth stuff and all the apps. I loved tracking my spending. I loved doing my backdoor Roth IRA and having to figure out how to report it on, all my tax
Yeah.
returns and stuff like that. And then something changed, Megan. I had children,
Right.
and
Got
I
married, had kids, got busier.
got kids, and then I got married. Well, I got married and then I had kids. And then like all the things that used to be really fun to me became ladled with like extra obstacles. And what I mean by that is like I was perpetually exhausted when my kids were under 5, and they're
Mhm.
one of them still under
Still
5.
under,
But
yeah.
just constantly working and doing things that like caused me to forget to do a lot of the things that I like used to have great attention for because of sleep deprivation. Like I messed up my backdoor Roth IRA. I'm just going to come out and say it. I messed up my backdoor Roth IRA one year. I forgot that I'd already made a contribution, and whatever website didn't stop me from making a second contribution. And then actually my financial advisor at SLP Wealth, Sim, caught it and told me, "Hey, Travis, you screwed up." And I'm like, "Oh no, something with the business." And she's like, "No, don't worry, just your own money." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, great."
Just yours.
And so we had to do a correction and like do a tax document to like correct my over
Hmm.
contribution. But it's like, why did I miss that? Probably because I was a tired dad, and probably because I was getting an average of 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night for an extended period of time, and
Hmm.
like moving the kids from one spot to another and doctor's appointments and all over the place. So I was like really tired, and it would honestly having reminders of like taking over some of these tasks that I used to do, like I just like being busy and tired and stressed is like I've lost enjoyment of some of those tasks. I still enjoy a
Hmm.
lot. It's like some of them, and some of
Yeah.
them like I don't some of it I don't turn over really in full. Like some of it I retain, but I still have an advisor. And the biggest value that she adds for me is helping me navigate money conversations with my wife. So like my
Hmm.
wife wants very different things from me. I want one more big telescope. I'm a big amateur astronomer. That's my one goal in life is to get one more very large Dobsonian telescope. I'm hoping it's going to be a 28 inch. It's really nerdy. It's really weird. I have to get a ladder to get to the top of the eyepiece. And that's all I need in life is that. And that's a very strange goal because I don't have anywhere to put it. You can't fit a 28-inch Dobsonian in the house. And so we have to build like a shed to put it in there. And like my wife is like, what the actual, and like
Yeah, it's not her hobby. Yeah.
she wants to buy like a place in Europe as like her dream one day. And that
Mhm.
to me is like, what the, like,
Yeah.
why will we do like why don't we just like stay at a nice hotel, for a few weeks a year or something?
Hmm.
Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And so that's an opportunity for conflict in our marriage. And so our advisor's helping us navigate that money conflict in our marriage, and she's like taking, like taking heat off of like an area for potential conflict. And then I guess the other thing is I'm just thinking about too, like she kind of like my advisor Sim will raise points of things that I'm like not doing that I probably should be doing. So for an example, is for years I've been giving money in cash to charities. That's actually really not smart if you make above a certain income level, because what you should be doing instead is donating stocks from your brokerage account and using a special like cost basis method where you're selecting the stocks that have the biggest gains. You want to get the biggest gains out of your portfolio, donate them to a donor advised fund. I use one called Daffy,
Hmm.
and we donate those shares, and we're doing this for SLP Wealth clients as well that ask us to. And we can move those high gain shares into the donor advised fund, take the full write off of the value of the shares, and avoid the capital gains tax on that. And then the money that you would have donated to the charity, let's say it's 10 grand, it goes into your stocks instead at a cost basis of the current market value. So like when you go buy that European apartment, in my case, donating these stocks will allow us to pull out those shares that I purchased at a high cost basis, which is going to mean way lower taxes, right?
Hmm.
So for me, yeah, control is fun and I like control, but what I realized was I was too tired to say that I was doing a good job anymore.
Yeah.
And I was costing myself money and causing myself stress.
Hmm.
And the reason I was causing all those things is because all these things in my life changed. I used to live, so I'm just going to say something weird. They used to call me, my trading name when I was a bond trader was Slumdog Trav. And I think that was the movie Slumdog Millionaire was out at
Yeah.
the time or something. And so they called me Slumdog Trav because I lived in an unfinished basement that I shared with a bunch of guys so that I could pay like $300 a month for rent so I could have like an 85% savings rate, right? I would bring bags of carrots and blocks of cheese to work because I didn't want to have to pay for lunch because that would have impacted my savings rate negatively. On our first date, I asked my wife to split a Chipotle burrito bowl so that I would only have to pay for one bowl
I
instead of
love that
two,
story. That's
and
so
I asked for
funny.
extra rice and extra beans so that we could accomplish the split efficiently. I don't do that at all anymore.
Yeah, she's still
And
married to you. That's
and part
pretty
of and
fascinating.
part of the reason is I'd like to stay married. I mean, this hopefully gives somebody hope out there that, yes, your spouse can change.
Yeah.
Yes, for true love, your
Right.
spouse will moderate their habits over time. But
Yeah.
like, I'm oversharing a little bit about my personal life, but it's just I've come a long way and so the thing is that like essentially my hardcore DIY-ness for me was
Hmm.
like insecurity about my own sense of financial security, basically.
Hmm.
Like I felt like super financially insecure, and I felt like, well, I'm the only one that can fix this. I've got to
You're the
like
one who
watch every
cares
penny,
more than
right?
anybody.
I've got
Yeah.
to watch every single penny. And
Hmm.
then I discovered, wait a second, if I instead focus on what can make me money, how I can grow a business, how I can grow how I can grow like our net worth and stuff like that instead of worrying so much about like small expenses, maybe that's a better use of my time, right?
Yeah, that is an interesting mind shift that I think a lot of people go through at some point, like early on in their career, or like as a student. Like it is like every dollar is so precious, and you're splitting Chipotle burritos, you're sharing rent with four other people, and and you're not doing coffee every day. You're doing all these like small things to make sure you're very frugal. I used to do the same, like bring my lunch to my internship every day. I ate rice out of a cup. People would make fun of me for that because everyone else is going to get sandwiches from the lounge and I'm just eating my rice cup. Um, you know. So but we all had those phases, and then, we realize as our income starts to grow, as we start to mature in our own financial planning journey, like the bigger bang for your buck could be making more money. And being able to be smart with it once we're making more money, of course, not,
Well, and
but
and so the DIYer stuff, what I think happens with most people is most people grow out of it, right?
mm.
Most people grow out of being a DIYer into being either a delegator or a validator. So let's
Yeah.
talk about this
Or they become
concept
a
of the
financial planner themselves, which I think is
or
kind of
that,
funny.
right? Well, let's talk
Yeah.
to our clients listening. Most
Yeah.
people are going to be graduating from DIYers into the validator or the
Yeah.
delegator once you
Hmm.
make above a certain income level and you make above a certain, well, you and your demands of your time become over a certain level, right?
Hmm.
So I think here's my hot take on the validator stuff. So, in this blog post, and I know Jim Daly, he's a good person. He's got a great business over there. We've had a sort of a friendly rivalry at
Competition.
times over the
Yeah.
course, yeah, of our growing our businesses. And, I respect what he's saying over there, right? But the reality is big investment mistakes and tax mistakes don't show up obviously on your tax return
Hmm.
because you have to know that you made the mistake and you have to know the cost of the mistake of what you could have done to recognize the mistake was even made in the first place. And I'm going to say this. The vast majority of people who are validators who are looking for, 2 or 3 time check-in a year or a one-time financial plan are not realizing what the reality of the labor supply of high quality financial advice that's specifically customized to them. So an example is this. I know very few high quality financial advisors who will even provide one-off plans.
Hmm.
Why?
It's
Because of
more rare.
compliance.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's because of compliance, because there's so much work that you have to do to document things, to get registered in different states, to comply with the SEC. There's like DOL rules that you have to like fill out like best interest forms every time an investment recommendation is made. You have to document a bunch of stuff that, in my opinion, is just really kind of overkill. Um, it's all this intense stuff. And there's also uh, like insurance costs for firms, legal expenses, lawyer expenses for compliance tasks. Like a huge chunk of our time gets spent on just really annoying compliance tasks, to be
Hmm.
really straightforward. That's one of the big reasons that there are not a bunch of validator friendly firms out there that are high
Hmm.
quality, is because the barrier to entry to become a financial planner is frankly ridiculous. In particular, when you know, not to get political, but when you've got people like coming out with their own meme coins and that's somehow okay with the SEC or whatever, like, why are we regulating financial planners so intensely, when we're not regulating other things that are very
Hmm.
damaging? You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
it is what it is. We have to operate within the way the world is. It's kind of like how a physician, even though they might want to provide a visit for 99 bucks for somebody and just do a quick, 5 minute like examine. Oh, okay, you're good. Here's the cash rate pay. You can't do that. Why? Like medical malpractice, like facility fees, right? You can't charge a low price for like this big CAT scan machine that you use or something because it's got to be calibrated and whatever. I'm not a medical doctor, right? Don't want to step out of my lane, but like I think that that's like so. In other words, what I'm saying is like high quality financial advice, because of regulations and compliance, has a very high barrier to entry, and it's very very difficult to get high quality advice in a way that a validator wants it. Like a lot of people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I love, a check-in every 2 or 3 years." And it's like, okay, if you get that, the person you got it from in the first year is not going to be the person you're going to get it from in 2 or 3 years. They're going to be at their quality. They're going to be too busy. They're going to be
Hmm.
working with clients, frankly, that are way more profitable, and they're not going to have time to meet with you. It's just the reality, right? Like at least that's what I see. Like the only people that I usually see open to taking one-off plans are people very early in their career,
You're
like
trying to
planners that are
build.
they're
Yeah.
trying
Just
to
like,
build.
yeah.
Yeah,
Trying
they're
to
they're
grow.
they're they're willing to do it because they're trying to grow, and maybe they haven't hit the de minimis exemption of 5 clients in a state yet where they'd have to register, and so they'll take you on as a planning client because they don't maybe have any clients in like New Mexico, and they'll do
Hmm.
they'll work with you because they're below the 5 client de minimis level. So it's like any planner that hits the 5 client de minimis, some states it's 1 client, they have to go register with the state securities regulators. And I promise you, this is one of the most miserable experiences of your life. If you've never like heard about it or understand how it works, like if you're a regular old financial planner and you have to regulate, you have to like I've heard a story where one of the state securities regulators in an out of the way state showed up to the clients, showed up to the financial planner's office and
Mhm.
argued with them about the size of their filing cabinet.
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me? Like, really? We're gonna do this right now, right? I have another one where I met a guy at a conference and he's regulated by a random state that I won't mention. But he had 5 or 6 people show up to his office,
No
uh,
notice, like barely
no
any notice.
notice, which
Yeah.
is like, people are managing money. I get that, but like,
Yeah.
is
But
that
he
really a
also
good
had
use of
client meetings that
people's
he had to
time? Like, yeah.
reschedule and like,
Well, it's
yeah.
just like, okay, you're gonna have 5 people show up to one guy's like office who manages the money at Schwab and all the accounts are titled through Schwab and everything. Like,
Hmm.
what is the risk to the public in that situation that warrants having 5 or 6 people show up for an exam? Like,
Yeah.
and think about like the lawyers you have to deal with to handle those 5 or 6 people. It's so much work, and people really, I think people that are prospective clients have no idea how brutal it is
Yeah.
to do financial planning in today's modern
It
environment with the
is.
modern
And
compliance environment.
personal story too, and folks may know this, but like I started my own practice like after leaving a traditional firm, but I did not do investment management for a lot of these reasons because I
Right.
thought, I could be still very impactful on helping people with budgeting, debt reduction, their student loans. I don't even want to get into the investment world because I was by myself at the time, and now we started SLP Wealth. We're not doing it alone, but it is not easy. It's still not easy with a lot of partners to do this.
Well, and it's brutal to set up investment accounts. I mean, if you're
Yeah,
using the traditional custodians that most people in the industry use, it is so
a lot of
hard
paperwork. It's a
to
lot.
set up the
Yeah,
paperwork. And like, even if you're not managing the accounts, I mentioned that Department of Labor rule where you have to like, they tried to protect people from like unethical variable annuity salesmen that were like trying
yeah,
to like make 12% commissions in people's life savings without proper disclosures. So it was a well-intentioned thing, but
yes,
like most of
yeah.
the compliance rules that happen in financial planning, it was a well-intentioned thing that became an absolute disaster of a rule that was implemented where like even if you're telling somebody, hey, move your own IRA that I don't get paid on to a 401k that I also don't get paid on so you can do backdoor Roth IRA without pro rata taxation, we've got
Mhm.
to document all that and explain it all and write
Explain why
some,
we made the recommendation. Yeah.
and again, what this does is it raises the barrier to entry for people to receive financial planning advice. And so,
Hmm.
like I said, the only people who, because ultimately, if I'm spending my time with compliance tasks, like that's time away from my family. And
Yeah.
so, the older I get, and the cuter my kids get, and the older they get, the less and less I am willing to spend my time dealing with some compliance or state related baloney
Hmm.
and the more I want to spend it with my kids, right? And that's
Yeah.
not me being mean. It's just like I can't not comply with the rules. If the rules are the rules, we have to comply with them, right? Or we have to pay somebody that will comply with them, right? And so we're paying to make sure that we're compliant with all these rules.
Hmm.
But because of that, like I'm trading time doing this instead of time with family, like my willingness to deal with that stuff decreases. And
Those
so
like
then
one-off
prices,
cases. Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
like,
then prices
mhm.
increase, and like that's what I'm saying is like if you're doing that one-off meeting with somebody, you're not going to be meeting with the same person every couple of years. Or if you
Mhm.
are, they're gonna make sure to protect themselves that they're going to get a multi-thousand-dollar fee where the engagement is going to be several thousand dollars. And the reality is life changes. You pay for the multi-thousand-dollar fee that's an 8-week intensive, and then the one big beautiful bill act passes, and then
Yeah. The
suddenly
whole,
there's
a lot
bonus
of the plan
depreciation on
is.
short-term rentals, and there's
Mhm.
a SALT deduction limit that's now 40,000 instead of 10, and it phases out at 600K, right? So the problem with this idea of I can check in every couple of years, it's just sort of like wishful thinking because in terms of getting max value, like is it better than doing nothing? I definitely believe that. I'm going to say that. Like being a validator and having a one-off check-in with a planner is much, much better than nothing.
Yeah.
But I would describe it as similar to the person that doesn't go to the dentist, but every like 3 or 4 years, like they show up to the dentist and they've got 5 cavities, and they could have prevented a lot of that just with like
Hmm.
regular cleaning and maintenance. And a lot of times people like are living in an insecurity or fear, like, oh, well, if I go to the dentist, then they're going to find a bunch of cavities. That's going to cost money, and I'm going to have to get drilled on, and that's scary. And I don't want to like hand over any kind of control to the dentist to like tell me I have
Yeah.
cavities, right? I mean, like everybody does this in some
Yeah.
ways, right? Like you think like,
There's
I
also the
mean,
people out there that think dentists are a scam, right? That like,
well, I think most of our people realize that they're not a scam. I mean,
correct.
my wife's a surgeon. She's a physician, right?
Yeah.
And what it is for her is time. She's busy. She doesn't really want to spend any of her because dentists are open during the workday, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't
Mhm.
want to spend any of her time that she could be spending applying for an NIH grant or dealing with like patient stuff on going to get her own teeth cleaned because she's
Hmm.
that intense about how she cares for, her career and her patients, but then she like kind of neglects herself sometimes. But I guess so. So the hot take on the validating model is that you're dealing with more junior planners, or you're paying a huge premium over what an ongoing rate would cost.
For a
And
plan that can change very soon,
for a
or
plan that's going to be mostly not that helpful in like 3 months, right?
yeah,
So
it's
it's
not
like you're paying for
proactive.
something
Yeah.
that's not that helpful. And so the other thought is, okay, well, are people that are validators actually saving money after fees are
Mhm.
deducted? So you want to think about ongoing, and obviously I have a conflict of interest. We have a financial planning firm. I'll talk about
Mhm.
that conflict of interest in a second and explain why I don't think it's that much of a conflict. But I just want to acknowledge that. But
Mhm.
anyways, talking about the validators like model of like this, oh, I can just check in with the planner every now and then. Um, so the hot take on this is validators cost themselves way more money making mistakes they don't even realize they're making than if they just paid the higher fees. And
Mhm.
this is particularly true for people making over 200,000 of household income. So I'm going to say this, if you are a below 200,000 household income, then maybe the validator DIY like kind of approach maybe makes some sense, right? Like maybe it's just you're not able to find enough opportunities for savings where it's
Mhm.
worth paying a big planner fee. Maybe you could argue that threshold is more like 100K of household income. Maybe that's true, depending on what you're paying for financial planning help, right? But definitely if you're making over 200,000 a year, is a very high probability you'd cost yourself way more money in mistakes, even because the reason people are validators is like they're afraid to turn over the keys slash they're afraid of paying too much in fees. Like it's kind of like this joint fear, right? Like I don't want to
Mhm.
turn over control because nobody's going to care about it as much as me.
Mhm.
And then also like I don't want to pay too much in fees because that's like a waste of money, and I really care about not wasting money because I
Yeah.
could spend
And
that money on other things.
there's those that
I think
do
that's the
like
thought.
enjoy it, but that's not the vast majority. I think there's some folks that really truly enjoy doing their own planning for whatever
Well,
reason, and that's
it's
not as common. It's
Well, wait, and the thing is like we support people saving money and not
oh yeah.
paying for things they don't value. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you can find something for cheaper, go for it. Like hot dog, go do it, right? But
Hmm.
this is why people make the mistake that they think they're saving money when they're not. So here's an example. 80 to 90%, this is my guess. I don't have firm data on this, but this is my guess. I believe that probably 80 to 90% of DIY investors at Vanguard are still set up for Vanguard's average cost basis method or their FIFO cost basis method. What
Hmm.
that means in plain English is Vanguard, as a brokerage firm, has to report cost basis data to the IRS as soon as you sell a stock or a fund.
In a
And
non-retirement account, right?
in a non-retirement account. And so if you go and sell something, they're going to report for mutual funds average cost, which is just the total gains divided by the average cost of the fund. And they're just going to report basically as if everything was bought on the same date, basically. And then for ETFs and stocks, they're going to report first in, first out, which is even worse than average cost because they're taking the earliest purchased stock and assuming that you sold that. Well, that results in usually the highest gain because that's had the longest time to appreciate in value, right? So, as an example of this, a lot of DIYers, they go hit the sell button. They say, okay, I need 50,000 for a car and I want to go get it out of my brokerage account. So you go into the brokerage account, you say, oh, I've got some VTSAX over here. I've got some VXUS, like international ETF over here. I've got some growth ETF over here. Okay, I've got some gains here. I'm going to sell, this one, and this one to get my 50K I need to buy my new SUV. When you do that without changing the cost basis, you are needlessly selling the stuff that has the highest gains because you're not changing the cost basis when you go and sell. I have had accounts at Vanguard. I currently have a couple accounts at Vanguard still. Their website is atrocious
Hmm.
for
It's really
protecting
difficult.
investors. In my opinion, I should say,
Hmm.
in my opinion, it is extremely difficult to figure out which share lot I should sell to minimize taxes. They have some alternative cost basis methods, such as like min tax, highest in, first out, like HIFO, I think it is. They have other cost basis methods, but if you were a DIYer, you have to be an expert to know what you need to change to not blow yourselves up. Another thing too to know is like if you ever do a conversion from a mutual fund to an ETF at Vanguard, if you are using the default cost basis method on the mutual funds of average cost before you convert those to an ETF, it's a tax-free conversion from the mutual fund to the ETF. But what they don't tell you is they lock you into average cost on the new ETF that you converted. So this is a major screw up that I see happen with people all the time. There was a physician that was bragging on some one of the Facebook groups that we monitor, who is like saying like, "Hey, this is a great idea. Like, you can convert your mutual funds to ETFs tax free at
Mhm.
Vanguard. More people should do this. Why aren't more people doing this?" Right? And like that advice would cost people 5 and 6 figures in taxes in the
Yeah.
future because you're locking yourself into this cost basis method. So in case people like are listening to this being like, what is he talking? Most people probably are understanding what I'm saying, I think, right now, because most people listening to this are more savvy than average, right? But in case you're not aware of what I'm talking about, like cost basis is like I buy a stock for $100 and then it's gone up 50%. Now it's worth 150. I go sell it and I have a $50 gain, right?
Mhm.
But that usually is not what happens. You usually don't make one investment and then go and sell it one day. What
Mhm.
happens is maybe you buy one for
Multiple.
$100 and it's worth 150, and then later you buy one for, 150 or
Mhm.
something later because the price is higher, you have more money to invest, you buy it at 150. So that cost is zero on that share because it's 150 market value and you just paid 150. And the earlier share you bought is 100 and it's worth 150. So that's what I mean is if you go sell the one you recently bought, the gain is zero. You pay, tax on zero of gains. If you do the default method that at
Average.
Schwab or Vanguard or other places, the first in, first out, you're going to go sell that $100 cost basis share, and you're going to incur, tax on that $50. And for our student loan planner borrowers, that is even worse than it is for other
Yeah,
people
it could be
because you're
really bad.
paying, well, because you're paying 20% for a lot of people for their capital gains rate. Some people it's 15. Then you're paying, if you make over 250K as a couple, you're paying 3.8%, basically round up to 4 for ACA. So that's 24. You have state income tax. For most people, that's 5 or 6, or you're at 30. And then now if you're on new IBR or old IBR or one of those plans, you're adding in 10 to
10,
15 on top of
15.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're losing 40 to 45% of your gain when you could have lost zero,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I'm saying is like, and some people might be like, well, I'm an accumulator. I'm only an accumulator. And I
Not gonna
don't,
sell. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to sell. And then it's like, okay, so let me call your bluff on some other things. Like, are you doing all your backdoor Roths? Are you doing them without incurring pro rata taxation, where you need to have your pre-tax
Mhm.
IRAs all put into your qualified accounts? Are you maxing out your 403Bs? And then also, if you have a 457, are you maxing out those? Are
Tax loss
you
harvesting.
well, tax loss harvesting, are you doing asset location in the right way? Are you
Mhm.
putting in your U.S. investments more so in your brokerage accounts because the U.S. investments have higher rates of qualified dividends, meaning that they're taxed at qualified 15 to 20% capital gains rates instead of ordinary rates that go up to 37%. So like international stocks and REITs are taxed more so at ordinary rates, which means that you're losing on average an extra 20% of your income, your investment income, because of those higher tax rates. So people should really be designing portfolios, especially if you have student loans that you're losing 10% to an IDR plan. You should be putting more of your US and your growth stocks and your brokerage and more of your international and value and real estate stuff in your retirement accounts. And then you need to coordinate across all those
Yeah.
accounts to make sure that
The
the
whole
allocations are
allocation. Yeah.
reasonable. And what happens with physicians, especially, is physicians are brilliant. I know my wife is one. She beat me on the SATs, right? I'm just going to come out and say it. She did beat me on the SATs. Um, not by a lot, I'm going to say. Not by a lot.
Okay.
I was okay. And the SAT 2s, the subject tests are where I really shined. I got a lot of perfect scores on those. But anyways, I mean, she rubs it in my face to this day
Did
that I
y'all
got
talk
a
about this
four.
on your second date?
Oh, I think it was second or third. She's like, what was your AP English exam score? And I told her it was a 4, and she's like, I'm not sure this is gonna work out. And I was like, I got 5s in all the other APs. Like, hold up, it's just a 4 English, foreign languages. They're always hard for me. I mean, like I tried to, but so my wife is a physician. She's brilliant, right?
Hmm.
Most of our clients are brilliant. I know that a lot of our physician clients are, very brilliant. And I think that the problem is you assume that brilliance means you're brilliant in everything. And it doesn't mean that you can't learn it, but it's very difficult to be an expert in everything. It's very difficult to stay up on everything and not make mistakes of inertia. I think that the brilliant people often make a lot of bad mistakes of inertia where they're eligible for the 457, but they just haven't gotten around to signing up for it yet. They're
Hmm.
eligible for the backdoor Roth, but they just haven't gotten around to doing it yet because they're busy. They know they need to add international stocks to their portfolio because international stocks have outperformed this year for like I think 13 or 14% US stocks, and they're worried about the future of tariffs and the US, economy. but they just haven't gotten around to adding international stocks yet. And if they haven't, and if they know they need to, they don't know if they should be putting more of it in retirement or US, right? Um, and they know they need to think about their student loans a little bit with like how they should file. Do they file separate? Do they do an extension? How will PSLF buyback impact whether or not they should be doing filing separate? And then should they wait on amending their old tax returns because of the PSLF buyback rules to make sure they get, a lower buyback number? Like there's all these things that people just don't think
Yeah.
about.
How do all of these
Right.
things coordinate together? Like you move one thing in the
Right.
plan and it touches a couple other things that maybe you didn't think
Well,
about.
and so the thought process is that it's not necessarily a panacea to be working with a financial planner either,
Hmm.
right? But I think that you have to be realistic and say, well, what do I really want to keep control of? Okay,
Hmm.
if you want to keep control of your investments, you can absolutely work with a financial planner and still can keep complete control of your own investments, right? We have plenty of clients. We have hundreds and hundreds of clients that ask us to manage everything. We have hundreds of clients that ask us to manage some things, and we
Hmm.
have hundreds of clients that ask us to manage nothing. And that's fine. Like
Hmm.
we're okay with that. What happens generally over time is people tend to realize this backdoor Roth thing is more trouble than it's
Yeah,
worth.
it's
Or,
annoying. Or
or keeping track of my, yeah, or
I
keeping
didn't do
track of my
XYZ.
rebalancing is annoying, right?
Yeah.
Or knowing which share lots I want to sell when I want to go buy my next SUV for my brokerage account in 5 years, or having to figure out like, okay, I know I want to buy a vacation home when the kids are about to go to high
Hmm.
school. That's 5 to 10 years away. I don't really want to be thinking through what allocation I need to have for
Yeah.
that goal,
Or I
like
didn't
that,
take
so it's
advantage
not
of
just sitting
like
in cash.
that loss. I was out of town that weekend. I didn't feel like, signing into my brokerage account to make the trades or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Well,
things.
and what happens again is because a high savings rate can kind of hide all mistakes or a lot
Yeah.
of mistakes.
Yeah.
A lot of physicians and dentists and the other high income professionals, they end up just fine
Either way.
because
Yeah.
either way, because they have a high savings rate, they keep their housing expense low, they keep their car expense low, they put money into somewhere, even
Hmm.
if it's like sketchy real estate syndications that websites get paid big kickbacks on to promote. Here's a little fun fact. I've got offered like big kickbacks to push some of these like passive, like supposedly passive, like real estate
Hmm.
deals and stuff like that over time. I've said no to those. Why? Because I feel like most of them as a category are very poor decision when you have a bad recession that hasn't happened since 2008. Why? Because liquidity. If you have a bunch of illiquid assets and it's some sort of like, illiquid real estate fund, everything's hunky dory until stuff starts going south. And then a lot of these funds use leverage. And so leverage works great on the way up. But if you have a negative real estate market and a negative overall market, a lot of these funds would fall apart. But they
Hmm.
pay great referral fees. And so you do see a lot of websites promoting some of this stuff. And, to be honest, like putting a bunch of money in some sort of like, a bunch of different real estate syndications, which a lot of physicians get pitched on all the
All the
time on
time,
social media.
constantly. Yeah.
Um, Putting the money in those is actually better than going out and spending it. I mean, in terms of like
You're not
hitting
wrong.
financial, so it's like, so that's the thing is like, physicians like mistake like their net worth going up with they're doing as good as they could have, right? Like it's like, oh, I'm making because like okay, if you make 600,000 a year as a couple and you're saving 200, like yeah, you might feel like you just need to be a validator because like
Hmm.
you're fine, you're making progress, and you know what? Maybe that is cool. It's
Yeah.
your life, it's not ours. But what I'm saying is well, what you're missing out on is what if you could have retired 5 years sooner
Hmm.
by paying attention to your cost basis? What if you could have, bought the vacation home 2 years quicker by
Hmm.
paying attention to how you pull your money out of your funds and selecting out of the default cost basis for brokerage accounts? What if you could send your kids to their dream college instead of just the, you know, nice college because you started doing qualified contributions to education savings quicker and you had somebody that noticed like, hey, you stopped putting money in. Something happened. You
Yeah.
you
What's going on?
disconnected the 529s because you needed to save up some money to buy a car, but you forgot to turn the 529 savings back on. Is that did you mean to do that, right?
Hmm.
Or I mean all kinds of things like here's another one, dependent care FSAs.
Hmm.
I had a real spicy conversation with my wife the other night. Don't worry, this is not going to a bad place. About dependent care FSAs. That was my joke. And we have one at work, and I was just thinking, like, she's busy. She's not the kind of person that logs in and makes claims for things like ever. Like,
Yeah.
And so if I did not log into her HR benefits myself and with her sitting with me and like go initiate a dependent care FSA like reimbursement request, that money would be wasted. She would deduct the whatever it is, the
The money
$5,000 or $2,500, right?
and lose
For
it.
singles. She would deduct the 5 grand. It would sit there and would go unused.
Yeah.
5 grand. 5 grand that just gets flushed down the
Yeah.
toilet because
FSAs are
she's
use it or lose it. So you
well,
have
yeah,
to
because
use,
she's
yeah.
busy and she's like not, she doesn't really care that much about like whether or not the DC FSA gets used versus like if her grant gets accepted. Like that's her priority, right? Or she cares a
Mhm.
lot more about how her patient surgical outcome is that night that she operated
Right.
on this week. It's just she doesn't care about money. She doesn't. Um, and you know, like, so that's the thing that I see day in and day out is like people thinking they're doing well and meanwhile, it's like you get under the hood and you look at their full finances and like they might be doing well in the absolute sense. They might be on track for hitting a lot of their goals. But you're like, but underneath you're like, oh my gosh, like that needs fixing, that needs fixing. You could optimize this. You need to switch out of average costs. You're back to Roths of steaming dumpster fire. Like you got to fix that. Like we had a client who had like reported the 8606 like didn't put the cost basis for their
Hmm.
1099R distribution or whatever for the backdoor Roth conversion, and so they made it look like they had a $14,000 income event, like a
Yeah.
taxable $14,000 distribution for them and their spouse from their IRAs. So that's like that was like a $5,000 or $6,000 mistake, you know, because there was like I think there was penalty tax too because it was a non-qualified withdrawal. It wasn't really, it was after tax money, but they didn't notate it right, you know?
Hmm.
And so they were costing themselves several $1,000s. They didn't know, right? They didn't know. Ignorance is bliss, right?
Hmm.
So I think the it's like yeah. So to the people out there that are um,
Validators.
validators, I'm just gonna say that I think that if you can afford to not be a validator, I think you're probably making a mistake just from a pure ROI perspective. And that is your right to make that mistake. It is your right to go out and try to find somebody who will work with you on a one-off basis, right? Um, and it is your right to find this out for yourself that this is not a good idea.
Hmm.
Um, it is also your right to be like, this guy's full of, you know what, because he
Yeah.
owns a financial plan. Well,
He's biased. Yeah.
let me tell you a dirty little secret, okay? Like at the time of this recording, well services is like 199 a month. I'm just gonna say something. That's really dumb of me. Like we should be charging like $500 or $600 a month, only working with people over 300K or 400K of incomes, servicing only, you know, surgeon business owners, right? Like that is the path to easy profits in
That's
financial
what
planning. Is
most
just
financial planners do too. Yeah.
most planning firms that you go look at the list on White Coat Investor. Just go look at it. And I'm not going to say that I might get in trouble for saying this, but I'm not saying it's a bad list. I think it's a decent list. But you could go look there to see what the typical quality firms that serve physicians charge. It's like 500 a month and up for most,
Hmm.
right? And why? It's because it's so much easier to charge a surgeon business owner with a private practice that needs advice on how to do depreciation on the building or something. It's so much easier to find one of those clients and charge them $30,000 a year than it is to service 10 clients
A
and
lot of
charge them a
clients.
tenth
Yeah.
of that, right?
Hmm.
It's just operationally easier. It's more profitable. You only have so much time in the day. Your planners will have only so much time in the day. So, like, I don't think that we have a huge conflict here, which might be wishful thinking, but like, you know, we don't do this because we want to get rich.
Maximize
Like,
profits. Yeah.
like for me, like I said, my big goal in life is a bigger telescope. I have an 18 inch. I want the 28-inch Dobsonian. And the only thing stopping me is not getting more money. It's my wife who I have to convince that it's a good idea. So, you know, my financial planner is helping me with that, helping me think through, you know, financially, how do we work through these dual goals of me wanting
Hmm.
the big telescope and my wife wanting her, you know, apartment in Europe or whatever. And so, like, we're probably going to make it there because of my planner, not because of like
The
you know
math.
me, not because of the math. It's like the
Hmm.
psychology aspect of things, right? Which is, you know, another huge part of value of financial planning people don't talk about. It's basically kind of like you could almost view it as like a positive, you know, couples therapy in some ways,
Hmm.
right? Especially if you're in a relationship. So, I mean, I think this topic lights me up. I get really excited
Yeah.
about it because I think most people are not being fully brutally honest with themselves. So we have an internal
Hmm.
term that we like to use called like, is it okay if you rip me a new one? Like, and we say that because
Right.
we want to let people relax and realize that we're not trying to like criticize, we're not trying to like make somebody feel bad or feel dumb, but we also want to be really honest with someone and
Hmm.
explain like, hey, here's like a major improvement option for you as a fill in the blank, a planner, an admin, a leader, right? Like we have all
Hmm.
this flat culture where people can kind of give feedback to anybody at our team, and we do it because we want to be great and we want to help people that don't have access to financial planning or
Hmm.
high quality access to financial planning traditionally, but also we have to live in the world of reality. And the world of reality is the costs to service clients are so high and so brutal that you have to reflect that in what you price, right? So,
Hmm.
but I think that the reality though is if you find a high quality firm as fiduciary, the ongoing value of the service is very, in my opinion, very likely to exceed what you pay in most cases. Not in all cases,
Yeah. And
but I
not every
think,
month, right? And it's over time, over that
over
depth
time. And I
of the
think,
relationship.
and I
Hmm.
think people watch like the what's his face? Uh the guy, oh gosh, the guy with the podcast that was on Netflix. Um
Uh, Ramit?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. People watch that Ramit like I will teach you to be rich, right? That's what
Hmm.
I was looking for. They watch that like Netflix episode and they see some poor retiree paying like 1.5% or 2% of AUM on $2 million, and like and
Yeah.
then the Reddit community comes out like in droves, and it's like,
Yeah.
how dare that advisor? She's being ripped off. Like that's
Right.
terrible advice. Like what a fool to pay that amount of money. Well, I agree. That's really high. Like
Hmm.
that's not probably warranted. Although, if the person is doing average cost under 2 million, that mistake in taxes could easily exceed 1.5%.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
If she got these if she's had this money sitting around since the 90s or something, her 2 million could have enormous gains,
Hmm.
and some careful withdrawal order planning, and some do you pull out of the Roth first, the traditional IRA first, the whatever, and
Hmm.
maybe this client's charitably inclined, maybe her RMDs should be going directly to the charity because she's not able to take the itemized deductions, but she can take those taxes right off the top for the qualified charitable distribution. So there's all these things, right, that like sort of the internet, like, you're paying too much in fees police like look out
Hmm.
for, and they get like excited because it's like, we found like somebody ripping somebody off and that person's dumb and that advisor's like
Yeah.
overcharging, and like that's a foolish thing to do. And it's like, what about that verse that's like, have you considered the plank in your own eye versus the speck in your, like, in other words, like, look at, that's not a perfect analogy, but it's like, do all these people that are pointing the fingers realize the mistakes they're making in their own portfolios?
Hmm.
And that's not to say that people aren't being ripped off by financial planners.
Yeah.
I do strongly believe that a lot of people are being ripped off by financial
Hmm.
planners that charge too much. That's one of the reasons that we wanted to start SLP Wealth, is
Yeah.
because I knew this was going to be a brutal business to start because of all the compliance and the legal stuff. But the reality is like, I felt like we could really make a difference in people's lives if we did it,
Hmm.
and we could be stronger if we did it together.
Yeah. This is our
And
passion. We could do together. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So look, if you want to be a validator, we're happy for you. Go to hellonectarine.com. I'll just say that on our own podcast. I don't get paid anything for saying that. It's
Yeah.
a more validator friendly approach,
Hmm.
but the problem is like these are all like, it's a marketplace of planners doing like one-off engagements. You're probably not going to get to work with that person in a couple
The
years.
second
That
time.
person's going to
Yeah.
be too busy. It's just think of it realistically that you're not going to get the benefits of the ongoing check-ins. Also, most all those people are not going to have the student loan expertise.
Hmm.
That's a big part of your plan. You're getting 10 to 15% of your income lost to IDR payments compared to everybody else. That has huge implications for how you structure your retirement, how you figure out which accounts to put money into, right? That really does matter.
Hmm.
And, people that are profession specific, if you find someone who's profession specific, the most of the planners are not wealthy yet. I'm just going to say that transparently. Most planners that offer profession specific advice are not wealthy yet, and their biggest goal in their lives is not to buy a bigger telescope. It's to renovate their house or send their kids to college, or very real financial worries that anybody with a family would need to worry about if they're not already financially independent, right? And so those people have to charge a premium and make good profits for their time, and they don't have any other choice but to do that to be able to provide for their families. You know, And I'm blessed that student loan planner's already been successful, so haven't had to worry about that as much in terms of charging an arm and a leg
Hmm.
with wealth. So, anyways, if you want to work with us, what I would say is give us a year. If if you're maybe a curious validator, you're maybe a curious DIYer, like you don't have to turn over your investments to us. Nobody's going to force you to do that. Nobody's going to demand you do that. You can have complete control of that. Give it a year at SLP Wealth and watch what happened to your net worth. Watch what happened to the progress towards your financial goals. Watch what happens in your marriage if you're married in terms of the reduced money conflict or and going the same direction towards
Hmm.
things that you both want faster. Um, Give it a try. Worst case scenario, you're out like I think like if you take 199 times 12, that's not terrible. I've been out of 10 times that from somebody that did a bad job on my driveway. I mean, like, I don't know, like I'm just being, it's kind of awkward to say, but like, yeah, like, you hire somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Even if you get a good price, you might have to spend a bunch of money redoing it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like home ownership stuff, like I always laugh, like people get concerned about like any other fees in any other area of their lives. And it's like, yo, have you ever been through a bad home renovation? Like,
Right. Most
just
expensive
wait.
mistakes ever.
Just wait. Oh my gosh. Like you hire like the wrong contractor, the wrong like,
Yeah.
the wrong interior designer or something. It's like throwing kerosene on money.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think that you can make a lot more progress than you think, listener. And I guess what's the link if they're interested in trying out SLP Wealth? Do we have that link?
SLP Wealth slash book, if you're interested. I think that's what it is.
Well,
Double
it's
checking.
slpwealth.com/book.
Yep. Sorry.
Um, that's all right.
SLP Wealth.
That's all right. Our back to our Roth advice is fire, but
I know. I
our
joke with
URL
folks like I'm great at like
advice.
math and numbers and like financial stuff, but words not so much.
That's all good. Just yeah. So anyways,
I'm glad.
slpwealth.com/book. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad I made you start pressing record. I think this is, I mean, these are literally conversations that we have like between us, like in the partnership between us and the planners, like so I thought it was kind of cool to have maybe a peek under the hood on what we thought about, the different types of folks out there managing their finances and then, what we talk about between each other on what our value is and where the value is not so great. Like, so I think this was fun. So you got a chance to hang out with us in the boardroom, I guess today is maybe the way to
Well,
say
there are
it.
validators. Just my theory is most people are just unaware validators, and they're unaware that they're costing themselves way more money than they're saving in fees. That's just, I think that what I've seen, that's just the reality. Um, have you heard of the saying, Megan, about Lake Wobegon? Have you ever heard of this?
No, uh-uh.
It's like some joke. It's like, there's this mythical place called Lake Wobegon where everyone's above average. Everyone's
Oh,
also
yeah.
above average looking. Everyone's above average wealthy. And it's like, wait a second, what is average?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like there's all kinds of stuff about behavioral finance, right?
Oh,
That it's
yeah.
like, and
Lots of stuff.
that stuff is brutal because it's like, yeah, we are very tough to move from inertia. Like
Yes.
it's very hard to get people to do things when it
Mhm.
requires effort and when it requires remembering to do something, and that is
Right.
tough.
Imagine like
So
just think about like moving a 401k. Like there's so many people who haven't moved like old 401ks because it's just a lot of
yeah,
work. You
it's
have
a
to
lot of work.
call, you have
So
to fill out forms, you got to wait, blah blah blah. So, I mean,
so I mean, yeah. So anyways, slbwealth.com/book if you want to try us out. And I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And
yeah.
any angry messages, we welcome any angry messages. Hopefully it's
Send
just
them to
constructive messages.
send
Send
them
them to
to
Travis
your
at
email.
Travis at
SLP Wealth.
it's yeah, slwealth.com or studentloanplanner.com, whatever you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love getting feedback about the show and we love getting ideas about stuff you want to hear about. And like, the
Yeah.
more controversial we can make it, the better because it's more interesting. So if you have any hot takes or, controversial things you're seeing online you want our take on, just send us an
Oh,
email.
yeah.
We'd love to hear it.
Yep. Perfect. And thanks for hanging out with me, Travis. And
Yep.
I hope everyone has a lovely weekend coming up. And I'll see you on the next one.
Take care. Are you ready to unlock financial freedom faster with SLP Wealth? Get high quality, affordable, student loan aware financial planning and get the best deal for it anywhere that you're going to find working with your own dedicated SLP Wealth financial planner that is able to give you the best integrated advice across financial planning, investments, and tax, along with all the student loan hacks that you need and that impact all other areas of your financial planning. The deal you're going to find here is special just for podcast listeners. If you go to promo.slpwealth.com, you can sign up with a great discount off your first month. That's promo.slpwealth.com.